Hi, Misha here, and I thought I would revisit the F-35B Lightning from Lockheed Martin. This model you've seen in several of my videos. This is a RAF version from Hobbymaster. It's a relatively recent release here. This is in the flight mode. And I wanted to compare it to the U.S. Marines version here from Air Force One. Talking about the good and the bad of each model. Both are 1/72 scale die-cast. And both have things to recommend them. Now, I've already done a video talking about the 35B, amongst others. This is the short takeoff and landing, or even vertical takeoff and landing version. Although, for combat, it doesn't really use vertical takeoff. It will use vertical landing, but for combat purposes, it's short takeoff. Or it can use conventional takeoff if they wish. It's the first production supersonic VTOL or VSTOL aircraft. It can go Mach 1.6. It can carry two 1,000-pound bombs internally. The standard A version can carry two 2,000-pound bombs internally. It can also carry two missiles in its internal base, and it has hard points on the wings. To accommodate the vertical lift system, it has about 2/3 the total fuel capacity of the standard A version. The prototype first flew in 2008, then work began on testing and refining the vertical system in 2010. At the end of 2012, the U.S. Marine Corps took delivery of its first F-35Bs, and in 2013, the British took delivery of their first, and both would test throughout the year. The U.S. Marines would declare their first squadron initially combat capable in mid-2015. And they would first be deployed in combat in 2018, September. And Britain would first deploy theirs in combat this past summer, 2019. So they're starting to go into service. And the B is definitely the most ambitious of the F-35 variants. That said, it's kind of ironic that it was the first one to be declared operationally ready in the U.S., although the way they did it is a bit, maybe not completely honest. It uses a lift fan, as you can see behind the cockpit here, for hovering, vertical takeoff, landing. And also it has a thrust vectored engine that can rotate over 90 degrees to go horizontal or vertical. Those two systems, actually it just has the one engine, which is a Pratt & Whitney, but the fan system, that component is manufactured by Rolls-Royce. They provide over 90% of the vertical thrust. The additional 10% is provided by small thrusters on the wings. those roll bars on the wings control the attitude as well. So it's all one integrated system. The Hobbymaster over here I have set up into standard flight mode. To go from this mode with all the flaps closed and the engine in the horizontal, to the vertical mode, there's a press of a button in the cockpit, and it takes the plane about 15 seconds to fully transform. I would assume the transformer noise plays in the cockpit while this is happening. Just a guess, but I mean, come on. So the top fan is exposed, and then doors open on the bottom for its exhaust there. There's also an additional set of doors on the spine. That's to give an intake for the engine, additional airflow, and of course again the exhaust in the back will rotate down. So a pretty complicated system, but it's very much automated to the point that it's easier on the pilot than the old Harrier. This also has more lift, of course. Is nearly twice the speed. The old Harrier is subsonic. It could go about Mach 0.9. Like I said, this can hit 1.6. It can carry more payload, and of course it is stealthier. This is a very expensive engine. It's also the most powerful single engine put into a jet aircraft. And yeah, it was kind of of course Britain was always pushing for the B variant because of its specific needs, as was the Marine Corps. In fact, this was a big part of the whole F-35 program. So models themselves. Okay. In its favor, the Air Force One is actually quite heavy. It's got pretty much all metal, wings, tail, all the top. The Hobbymaster is quite light. The top is metal, but you know, the bays and stuff on the bottom, it feels a little lighter. On the other hand, it has a better detail to it, more patterning. Has an opening canopy with a detailed pilot figure. The Air Force One canopy is closed, and it has their typical cockpit and kind of generic figure. One thing that's kind of annoying about the Air Force Ones, they do have screw heads in the bottom that are visible. So whereas Hobbymaster and Corgi tend to plug their screws, which is nice. As far as ordnance, this comes with weapon bays plug-in open or plug-in closed, and that's it. The Hobbymaster is more versatile. It's separate pieces. You can open the bays or close them, and you can install or remove ordnance inside, so a little more flexible. Both do have landing gear up or down. Of course, the Hobbymaster transforms too. But the reason I have it in flight mode, and one place I do find the Air Force One superior, is in the transforming. One neat thing that the Air Force One does, at least I find it neat, is the fan here rotates. Not sure why, but it does. The doors are the same there. But what's neat, the underside doors are a single piece that plugs in, whereas on the Hobbymaster, the underside doors are actually two separate doors. Now on the top, both have two separate doors for the engine intake. But what I like, for the engine itself, the Air Force One, again, is all one piece. The nozzle and the doors, it's just all one piece. It slides right up and plugs in. Whereas the Hobbymasters, if you put it in the down position, it's actually the engine and the doors separately, so three pieces. Likewise, the Hobbymaster landing gear, when deployed, are the gear and then the door. In the Air Force One, the door are part of the gear, so it's just a one-piece plug-in. And as I've said before in other videos, one thing I think Air Force One's always done nicely are their stands. They're metal, and they're held together with a nice big wing, kind of a thumb wheel screw. And they plug into the bottom of the plane and using two holes very securely. Whereas Hobbymasters are kind of little plastic stands. Now they do also plug in quite securely, so that's nice. Also, I should say, newer Hobbymasters like this one do come with the optional gun pod, the 25mm cannon, but unfortunately, if you want to use it, you can't display it on the stand, so that kind of stinks. Whereas, again, the Air Force One, no gun pod. I would say if you plan on transforming them frequently, Air Force One is your better bet. Fewer pieces and kind of more robust pieces. They do plug in a little loose, but a tad bit of blue tack will take care of that. Whereas the Hobbymasters tend to be a little stiff plugging them in, and they have lots of small little pegs and whatnot. So I'm afraid if you try to transform them too much, you would either wear them out or snap a piece off. So with the Hobbymaster, even though you have more options, like bays open or closed with your choice of ordnance, you kind of need to pick it and stay with one mode. Whereas the Air Force One, I feel like you can transform them more frequently because of just how the parts are, and also the plastic they use for the bottom pieces is less detailed, I'll grant you, but it's also a little more springy. This feels a little more resilient. So I would say, yeah, for durability, the Air Force One feels pretty good. But for looks and options for display, the Hobbymaster is superior. In the end, the Air Force One is cheaper, not a huge amount, but about 25 bucks. So yeah, not a bad plane. They also do A's and C's, both companies. One thing I like about their C, it does have the folding wing tips, whereas Hobbymaster does not. But yeah, I just thought we'd revisit this and look at two models from different manufacturers. Honestly, I don't think you can go wrong with either one. I think both did a good job. I have these because this is American and that's British, and I kind of want to display one in vertical mode and one in horizontal, so why not? Anywho, appreciate you tuning in. If you could, like, share, and subscribe. And also check out the link to some of my other videos. This is Misha, and I will catch you very soon. How about there, man?